Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Church on this Pledge Kickoff Sunday. A warm welcome to all of our members and friends, including those who are joining us on Zoom. Hello, we're glad that you're here. And especially to our visitors and guests. We are so glad that you're here today. Thank you for giving us a try. This is the Sunday each year when we begin our annual campaign for the financial security and ongoing mission of our church. If you're visiting today, I hope you'll be inspired by how much we all love this place and carry that inspiration into whatever commitments to community you've made in your own life. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have just a couple of announcements before we begin. First, January 28th, that's this coming Tuesday night, is Teams Night. 6:30 for pizza, 7 o'clock for team meetings. If you're on a volunteer team, we hope to see you there. And if you're not on a team, you're invited to join our environmental ministry for a letter writing party on behalf of our beloved Great Salt Lake. Bring your pen, phone, or laptop to Teams Night, meet other First Church folks who love the lake, and follow a proven step-by-step process for writing effective messages to our lawmakers. If you think you might come, then we encourage you to stop by the environmental ministry table and just let them know you're coming so they can kind of get a head count. But regardless, we would love to see you there on Tuesday. And with Valentine's Day just around the corner, our caring team will have a table in Elliott Hall during coffee hour following the service for writing Valentines to people in our community who might need some love right now. Just come by, you can write a card, and we will send those cards out to folks in our community who can use those cards. Maybe people who are sick or can't get out that much these days. So stop by the table. You can also let them know if you know of someone in our community who could use a Valentine. And you can always email those as well to caring@slcuu.org. And now we'll begin our service with the lighting of the chalice. We gather today in celebration of where we've been together as a church community, of where we are today, the amazing and sometimes miraculous growth we've achieved together, and the future before us, the future as yet unformed, but shining forth with possibility, our dreams of a stronger community and a vibrant world of peace and justice. For all these gifts, I light our chalice today. Now I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, and let's sing together number 34.
morning. My friends, I'm happy to welcome up today's lay minister, Darlene Thayne, who will speak to us about January's lay ministry theme of equity.
Good morning, my friends. So good to be with you again on this beautiful morning. I have heard it said that critical thinking is not taught in the public schools. However, I challenge that concept because when I taught fourth grade not that long ago, our Utah State core curriculum mandated that we teach our students how to compare and contrast different pieces of legislature. Oh, that would not go well. Fourth graders. Oh, get off the topic. Different pieces of literature, both fiction and nonfiction. With the concept of equity in mind, I am asking you today to join me on a journey to compare and contrast a couple of healthcare outcomes. Are you up to the task? I have two stories to tell you about two young men who are related to me. My youngest son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes literally overnight at age 14 after complaining about having to pee too much at school. We took him to Instacare, which immediately sent us to the hospital to do blood work, and his blood sugar levels were through the roof. Our life as a couple and my son's life seems to have had two halves since then. Before diabetes and after diabetes, our whole world turned upside down. The doctor who was on call that night, fortunately, also had type 1 diabetes, so he was experienced and encouraging and stayed with us most of the night, working to bring down my son's sugar levels gradually to make sure that he didn't go too low. The hospital staff was amazing in explaining our new reality about his relationship to food, especially carbohydrates, and how to count them and determine how they impacted his insulin levels. I remember vividly how they worked with him using an orange and a syringe to show him how to inject insulin and giving him a crash course on when and how much should be injected. Our healthcare plan paid for him to have a juvenile diabetes specialist meet with him regularly to help him test his blood sugar short-term and monitor it long-term, which is called his A1C level. They also gave us updates on a possible cure, which they at the time estimated would be about 10 years, and that was 26 years ago. We attended a support group regularly and became active participants in JDRF, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. My son also received counseling from them on how to manage this disease, and he was encouraged to attend summer camp with other teens who were going through the same thing. However, he chose not to take advantage of this. He would say to me, "Sure, Mom, the funnest thing I can think of to do this summer is sit around a campfire shooting up insulin with other diabetics." No, thank you. So that closed that issue. 1 year after he was diagnosed with diabetes, my son was allowed and paid for by our insurance to begin using an insulin pump, which changed everything. He now has an implanted sensor which automatically tests his blood sugar levels and is connected to his pump and Apple Watch, which has really made a difference in his quality of life, also covered by his insurance. Technology has saved the day for people with diabetes, in my opinion. Still, there have been real bumps along the way. On at least 2 occasions, I have witnessed my child in a grand mal seizure, and they were some of the most terrifying experiences I have ever had. I wish I had time to tell you the circumstances, but corner me sometime and I'll entertain you with the shocking details. However, in my opinion, he was given so many tools through our healthcare provider that he has been able to deal with this awful disease in a very productive way that has not hindered his life's goals, although he does get a lot of credit for being a very driven and disciplined human being. All of these tools could have easily bankrupted us and ruined his life if it were not for good health care. Now for another story. My sister's boy was about the same age when he also had an experience that was life-altering. He was delivering newspapers on a bicycle. Do you remember those days? And he hit a manhole which was several feet deep. He was thrown forward almost 30 feet and landed on his head. His injuries were pretty severe, and when I went to see him at the hospital, I broke into tears because his face was barely recognizable. The doctor in charge at that point said, "Don't worry about these outward scars. We can fix them. Probably you should worry about the internal scars on his brain." And he was so right. His brain damage was not as obvious then, but has proven to be insurmountable with time. I was working for a top litigator in the state back then and got him to take the case. We sued several government agencies and got thousands of dollars, which has not been enough to make much of a difference, and honestly was gone in a fairly short period of time. He has been in and out of prison and the state mental hospital and has been homeless for long stretches of time. I have remained fairly close to him through the years, and here's what he says to me at the end of our conversations. "Aunt Darlene, I can't wait to be able to come and take care of you real soon." Other than a distorted sense of reality, what does that say about this young man? To me, it says that he means well and is a loving person who wishes to do good in this world. Honestly, I can't say for sure if better health care would have made a huge difference in my nephew's life, but I sure would have rather seen him treated up front regularly and as a worthy human being rather than being pushed around the system between stopgap agencies which didn't want to continue to pay for his care. What do you think? Compare and contrast these two somewhat similar but very complicated situations. What if, knowing that my nephew had serious brain damage, he had been monitored, received regular counseling along with his family, maybe even been housed in a secure halfway situation or received possible medication and other help, knowing that, according to our lawsuit, he was very likely destined for prison or a mental institution. Is that what equity in healthcare would look like? Would it solve all of the healthcare issues in the United States? I think not. But could it make a big difference in outcomes for so many, including society as a whole? Would there be waste and mistakes made by a national healthcare system? Well, of course. But in light of the outrageous salaries of most healthcare executives that have been revealed of late, there is ample room for redistribution of funds. Obamacare was a good beginning and has already made a huge difference in the lives of millions, but still, we have a system in which taxpayers bear the cost of major medical care. But this taxpayer money flows mostly through private companies that take a cut, spend a lot on administration, and then do their best to deny care to people who need it. May we, as the richest country on earth, strive towards a more equitable healthcare system which values society's best interests over profit. Other developed countries have proven that it can be done, and I have hope.
If you are a gardener, then I bet I can guess what book is on your coffee table or nightstand these days. A seed catalog. Late January is a time when gardeners start fantasizing about ripe tomatoes and squash, gorgeous roses and zinnias, fruit trees bending over with boughs full of fresh fruit, and shelves bending under the weight of full jars and cans. Looking out the window on a frosty day like today, it can be hard to imagine all that bounty, but it sure looks good in the seed catalog. You ambitiously order your seeds, too many of them, more than you can possibly use if my guess is correct. And then there's nothing to do but sit back and wait for them to arrive, right? Oh no. Only a novice gardener sits staring out the window in February. A golden opportunity, or perhaps a green one, awaits out there among the dead leaves and empty branches. The great Sufi poet Rumi said it something like this: a gardener watches the sky break into song, cloud wobbly with what it is, bud, thorn, the same. Wind, water, wandering this essential state. Fire, ground, gone. That's how it is with the outside. Form is ecstatic. Now imagine the inner, soul, intelligence, the secret worlds. And don't think the garden loses its ecstasy in winter. It's quiet, but the roots down there are riotous. Even as storms rage in the sky above and snow blankets the surface of the earth, there's a party going on down below at the elemental level. Each plant in the system, each fungus, each larval creature, every earthworm and bee is waiting for its moment, waiting for the sun to provide her cue. But down below, the roots are riotous. Now is their time. The gardener's role is to support these tendrils of growth by nurturing the soil, clearing debris, tilling the topsoil, and spreading mulch and compost to encourage warmth and bioactivity. Without rich soil, there can be no tomatoes or roses or bending boughs and shelves. It all starts underneath. But I think it's even more than that. It's also the gardener understanding that the garden is a system, and even the parts we can't see contribute to the healthy functioning of the entire system. The gardener understands that there's always something happening in the garden, and sooner or later, every part depends upon every other part. Nature teaches us how to take care of each other in community. Start by tending the soil. Our theme this year for our pledge campaign is Nurture the Soil. You may wonder when you fill out your pledge card or see your monthly gift withdrawn from your bank account how much good you can do with this contribution to our church. You may wonder if it's enough to make much of a difference. Just as you may feel that showing up for a Sunday morning of greeting our visitors to worship, or teaching a children's class in RE, or volunteering for a shift of making or delivering burritos is just a small contribution, and wonder how much difference you are really making. But I want you to know that no single one of us creates this community by ourselves. Each one of you, whether you are giving in a big way or a small way, makes a difference to this church. I cannot think of a single person here that we can do without. Not one. We need what you bring. This garden can put it to use. You may never even know whose roots you were able to support with your nurture and tender care. Today, as we begin this annual campaign for the ongoing work of our church, there are storms raging around us. Fear and worry blanket the ground beneath us, and we brace ourselves against the cold. But underneath it all, our roots are riotous. This is our time. Let's give as generously as we can and recommit ourselves to the beauty and nourishment that await us as this church grows into its future. May it be so.
May joy and peace surround you, contentment at your door, and happiness be with you, both now and evermore. May joy and peace surround you, contentment at your door, and happiness be with you, both now and evermore. May joy and peace surround you, contentment at your door, and happiness be with you, both now and evermore. May joy and peace surround you, contentment at your door, and happiness be with you, contentment be surround you, contentment be surround you, contentment be surround you, and happiness be with you, contentment be surround you, may contentment be surround you, contentment be surround you, and happiness be with
I'm happy to welcome up Sue Geary, who is the leader of this year's pledge team, who is going to talk about the pledge drive, which launches today. Yay!
Good morning. I'm happy to start our pledge campaign through which we raise all of the funds that support the work of our church. And I have just some notes here to kind of start our fundraising. Put this on. This on. Put all of your money in the bag. Don't make a sound. Don't call attention to yourself. And don't push that button. Oh, wait. I might have picked up the wrong notes. Oh, this is for something I'm doing with a friend outside of church. Oh, well, that was scary. Almost as scary as our pledge goal. We have this year our most ambitious goal of $650,000, which raises last year's pledge by $100,000. That represents a 12% increase, But aren't we glad it's not 10%? We have a need for this extra income, and you'll hear more about why we have that need this year. We can do this. We've always met our goal. We're a strong community. And I would ask you to consider that this church has been a force for progressive thought in this community since 1891. Yeah. So this is the soil from which all of our programs, all of our work grows. And this year especially, in addition to our social and environmental justice programs, we are going to be one of those faith communities that will speak out and act in support and defense of our immigrant neighbors, our transgender children, our unhoused friends, and others who are the direct targets of a lot of hostility from this administration and from our own state legislature. We have important work to sustain. So to all of you who have been our pledging supporters over the years, thank you for that support, and we hope that you'll consider increasing your pledges this year. When I think why I continued to come here after rejecting religion for most of my life, but I've been coming for close to 21 years, and the easy answer is that I get filled up when I come. That over the course of a week, I think we all get depleted. We can now get depleted in a day's time by just attending to the media. And this is where we're getting filled up. So if you too come here regularly, find that you get filled up. If you haven't become a pledging member yet, it's time. If you've been pledging, consider if you can make an increase in those pledges. Every pledge matters. Every pledge contributes to our work. This week you'll be receiving your pledge cards in the mail. We ask you to bring those back next week, and as you turn in your pledge cards, we have a gift of soil for everyone who pledges this year. I'm very fortunate to work with an active, engaged, committed pledge team. I'd like to introduce those pledge members to you now. Beth Brennan. Beth has been out. We have Beth Brennan, Peter Esco, Aaron Finney Johnson, Trenton Krasick, and we're assisted by Becky Heel and Henry Whiteside, who co-chair the generosity team. We have a snack for you of things that grew from soil after services. These folks will be at the pledge table over the next 8 weeks, so look for their friendly faces to collect your pledge cards and answer any questions you have. I'll warn you that these are also some of the people that you don't want calling you at the end of the pledge drive, reminding you to get your pledges in. So thank you for your ongoing support, and we look forward to a very successful campaign this year. Thank you.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here, and those far away, for this time we share, with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Pledging is really the backbone of the support that you offer us. and by which create this community. But the money that we put into the basket as it goes around also goes directly into our operating fund and is also appreciated. So as the basket goes around today, please give as you are able, and please also take this time to greet one another as well. The offering will now be gratefully received. So I will say that I imagine it might feel weird to some of us to be launching a pledge drive after this particular political week. Just me? Oh. Because you see, a pledge drive is ultimately a campaign of both unity and hope. And for the past week, every time I have opened either the news or the cursed quagmire that is social media, all I have seen is division and fear. And of course, this is by design. It is a classic move. Seed hopelessness, divide, and conquer. Or in this case, I guess, enrich yourself and all of your bros. This administration wants us to react to everything it is doing right now with immediacy and anger and fear. It wants us to jump to rash statements and rash actions. It wants us to turn on our neighbors and even our friends. It wants us to withdraw, to throw away relationships, to mistrust our own friends or family, to burn bridges with even those that we are aligned with, because we might have variations on opinions of the means by which to get to the end. Of course, we liberals have become experts at turning on each other over subtle differences in theory and tactic for the past 15 years or so. And it's gotten us where? Here? Oh, I don't like that. Maybe we should do something different this time. What do you think? This administration wants us to want to burn it all down. It wants us to sacrifice ourselves in impulsive acts of resistance. But the thing about dying on a hill is you only get to do it once, even metaphorically. I've gotten a few emails this week about how we need to resist and be civilly disobedient. Yeah, probably, something like that, though I think it might be more productive to think of these things as just doing the right thing. But whatever we do over the next months or years, we must not do it impulsively from the space of fear and reactivity. I say again, that is what this administration is trying to get us to do. What it does not want us to do is remain relatively calm, remain connected with one another, and remain steadily building. We, the staff and the board, are in diligent discernment about appropriate actions to take to continue to serve the most vulnerable members of our communities in this new landscape. And we will be bringing these discussions to the congregation in the near future. But I, for my part, will not be reacting with rage-filled statements or social media posts or op-eds to every single moment of outrage bait this administration is going to throw at us. I did that the first time around, and frankly, I think it contributed to the overall problem. I believe this new world calls for carefully considered action rather than swift verbal reaction. But how do we build together when it seems like everything is telling us that we exist in a world of scarcity? Scarcity of resources, scarcity of community, scarcity of humanity, scarcity of compassion, scarcity of trust. Now, I've been hearing a lot of people talk over the past 10 years or so about scarcity versus abundance, as if those two things are somehow opposite and in conflict with one another. The idea in that conversation is that scarcity is a mindset where we need to hoard everything because we are afraid that we won't have enough in the future, where we clutch our purse strings tightly, where we are stressed and mistrustful always. Now, in this mindset, abundance is the opposite. Abundance is trusting that there will be more than enough. We can let things go, we can declutter, because we know that more will come when we need it. Abundance allows generosity and freedom from attachment to material things, or so the thinking goes. But I can't help but feel like, when unexamined, abundance mentality may just be the flip side of this scarcity mentality. After all, should we really expect to live in abundance? Abundance. Abundance means more than enough. And I can't help but thinking that expecting, or if I may, being entitled to think that we always will have more than enough is not really an okay way for human beings to live. For instance, I know a lot of people my age and younger now essentially throw out their entire wardrobes every couple of years. Because one, clothes are so cheap now that even on a modest middle-class income, many people can afford to buy 50 to 100 new pieces of clothing a year. And two, clothes are so cheap now that many of them only last a year or two if you're lucky. And I know some say that they buy clothes that only last a wear or two. Most modern furniture you buy will fall apart in a few years as well. But no worries, you can always buy more, and your tastes will probably change by then anyway, so you can refresh your decor for that new aesthetic. And when you can buy almost anything at any time because of the internet and smartphones, why not think of everything as abundant? I can buy a book, a winter coat, a frying pan, and a sectional sofa in my bed at 1 a.m. If they arrive and I don't like them, I can probably return them, though of course we know that many online returns end up in the garbage. But I can at least get my money back, right? And imagine maybe that they get returned and resold. And if I buy them and I don't like them, or they fall apart in a month or a year, whatever. They probably weren't that expensive, at least compared to what similar items would have cost 75 years ago. And I can probably just buy another one. Now, I don't think the idea of abundance mentality is necessarily just disposability culture in a self-help dress, But I think that if we don't look at it carefully, it could easily lend a moral air to something that I think is hurting us and the planet. And I think I've mentioned this before here, but the discussion that I hear of abundance and scarcity always seems to leave out what I think is the most important part. Let's call it preciousness. I rarely feel that anything is precious these days, but I used to. For a long time in my young adulthood, I lived in the third most expensive city in the country, and at the same time made very little money as an artist and a yoga teacher. Now, here's my guilty liberal caveat. I had what many people don't in that situation. I had health insurance because Massachusetts gave health insurance to everybody. And I also had a safety net. So being able to see doctors and care for my health took away a lot of the stresses that many people experience when they are lower income. And I also had 2 living parents who were in a good financial position and who I knew I could count on if something catastrophic happened and I went under. And so I make this distinction because I don't want the following musings to be interpreted as like romanticizing the reality of living lower income in the United States. My experience was not the typical lower income experience of most Americans in many ways. And I wish that everyone had access to health care and the security of knowing that they won't end up homeless just because of a couple of strokes of bad luck. But I digress. I want to note some things that I've noticed about scarcity and abundance mentality from my personal experience, both living on little income and now being what the kids are calling middle class. So when I lived in Cambridge on under $30,000 a year, often well under $30,000 a year, everything I owned seemed precious. The thrifted dress that fit me perfectly in my exact color felt more special than buying an in-stock dress from a retailer that had multiple of the same color and multiple sizes available. I made sure to use every single grocery that I bought, and I froze what I couldn't eat and came back to it later. I even washed out plastic zipper bags and let them dry. I think I had about 20 of them for the 8 years I lived in Cambridge. It also gained a different meaning when I would find the thing that I had been looking for. I tried not to buy anything that I didn't absolutely need. I mean, for the most part, you guys have probably noticed that I had like a shoe thing, but I had friends who worked there, I get a discount, whatever. But there were times when I wanted something but didn't really need it, I would often just put it out to the universe. I'd say, I will have that when I am meant to, and I will get by until then. And I went about my life, and I waited for it to show up. And usually, the thing would come to me in a reasonable amount of time. Often, I'd find it on the sidewalk. People in Cambridge put stuff out on the sidewalk all the time. Sometimes it would be Buy Nothing Cambridge. This sidewalk is how I got my coffee table, which is a real antique mid-century piece with a leather top. And I also got my dresser that I still use there, which is solid wood, made in the USA, and has dovetail joints. Yeah. Cambridge was different. I also got my rice cooker there, and yeah, like half of that was kind of melted, but none of the heating elements were compromised, so it worked fine for years. And there were a lot of more things. My gray flannel, German cotton PJs, so many things that I still have. Sometimes friends would be giving it away. Sometimes it would show up at an attainable price, either at a yard sale or a thrift shop. The world gained a meaning that didn't happen when you just go out and buy everything you need or want. When I would come across things on the sidewalk that I had been looking for, it made me feel like the universe, or if you don't want to be woo about it, the community was taking care of me. But when I go out and buy everything I need, I think I'm only taking care of myself. And maybe that's what abundance mentality is meant to be, trusting that the community will provide, the world will provide, even if it's not fancy or perfect or exactly what we might want if we were to choose. Maybe it's supposed to be the opposite of consumerism, when we are not constantly in search of exactly the product that we want, optimizing everything, honing our aesthetic, which sustainable hairbrush will both fit my vibe and also show the world what I believe in. I've been on TikTok, I see what it's like. Anyway, when you are participating in neoliberal capitalism, the way it wants you to, you don't have time to wash out your plastic bags and air dry them. And I certainly don't have time to wash out plastic bags and air dry them, or rather, I now choose to do other things with my time. In a world where you can get anything at any time, nothing is valuable. Nothing is precious. And another way to say that is nothing matters. But what does this have to do with our pledge drive? Well, friends, I think it can be hard for somebody who's maybe grown up in the last 40 years or so to understand the concept of pledging to a church. It might be different if you're from an LDS background, I don't know, but I'm not talking about anything forced or perfunctory here. I am talking about voluntary, love-based stewardship. Pledging and stewarding a church is vastly different from buying a thing or paying for a service or even making an investment in the capitalist sense of it. When we pledge, we become stewards of something because we think it should be in the world. The returns we get are being part of that thing and having it exist. And yes, sure, we can do the nonprofit thing and quantify much of it, right? Our religious education program, for instance, is in the top 2% of enrollment out of all UU churches in the world. Yes. In the world. And that's not like per size of congregation. That's total, my friends. We have the 4th largest religious education program in the entire Pacific West region, which is basically everything west of the Mississippi. And that includes congregations that are 2 or 3 sizes bigger than us. Those are the only ones who are beating us. It's not a competition, but it's a competition. Our small group ministry is the largest UU small group ministry that I know of. We have 13 small groups that serve a total of over 140 adults, creating real deep connections in a world of increasing isolation. We have 3 different choir programs with combined membership of 70 plus people. They perform about 20 times a year, and they make me cry every time. I don't know about you guys. We have an ever-expanding list of social justice and environmental ministry projects, from saving the Great Salt Lake to working with our unhoused neighbors and beyond. And all in all, our building hosts over 1,000 events a year. Over 100 most months. And that ranges from everything from team meetings to discussion groups to film screenings to funerals. A lot happens here. And amazingly, all of this happens because you make it so with your pledges. So our goal this year, as Sue said, is an increase. It is $650,000, which is a total increase of 12% over last year. And so this is somewhat higher than just inflation would be, but that is because, 1, since the pandemic, up until this year, we had been receiving an employee retention credit from the government. And that is now over. Last year, the ERC supplied $80,000 of our budget, so we now need to make that up. And then we have just recently hired a part-time administrative assistant, Lizzie, who is actually here. You can meet them out, I think, in the lobby later. They're great. In order to help Stephanie and Amanda. And this was a necessary addition because their workload had become untenable, truly. As I have mentioned, we have been steadily growing as a congregation since the pandemic, and we are now actually larger than we were in 2019, which is awesome. But beginning at the start of this church year, we had half the administrative staff. So, larger congregation, half the staff. And this was an unsustainable recipe for disaster. So hiring Lizzie is the first step to try to make sure that our staff is sustainable. And things are better so far, and we really want to keep her. So making our pledge goal of $650,000 will allow us to meet the growth that we have experienced and continue operating at our current level, as well as lean into any growth that may be coming. And I do believe that this church, this congregation, this community, and the work we do is precious. And the truth is that resources and community and humanity and compassion and trust are, I'm not going to say scarce, but they are rare. Rarer than I wish they were. I recently tried to think of something that I owned that was truly precious. And I had a hard time doing it, right? Because we don't think of things that way right now. We have this very disposable way of thinking of things. And something precious is rare and irreplaceable. So I came up with this, which was my grandmother's brooch. Now, this is actually made of fine materials, well, according to my mom. It's supposed to be made with platinum and diamonds. It probably is. And my grandmother was by no means a rich lady, so I'm sure this must have felt very precious to her. But what makes it precious to me is not its monetary value. I don't know what that would be. It's the fact that it connects me to my matrilineal line. It's the relationships, the family ties, the history, and the story that it carries with it. And so it is with this church. My friends, your pledge cards are going to come in the mail this week. Please do look for them. And to help make things easier this year, we have included some suggested pledge raise amounts on your cards. If everyone did raise their pledge by 12%, we would make our goal. And of course, I know not everyone will be able to do that. So if you are able to raise it more, that will help account for those who cannot. And so just consider what you're able to do, consider what this community means to you and will mean to you going forward. All pledges help. There is no pledge that is too small. There's definitely no pledge that's too big. But there is no pledge that is too small. I truly look forward to seeing what we are able to build together this year. And I hope that you share in my gratitude for this precious community. Amen. Fine. All right. Wendy's, no, 10. I didn't expect you to clap, so that threw me off. We're doing 10:03.
10:08.
10:08. Rise. May all beings be well. May all beings be content. May our actions be bonded to our deepest values. May we treat others as we would be treated. May we move through each day with compassion toward ourselves, our friends, and our enemies. May each breath bring us closer to our truest selves and to those we love. May it be so. Thank you, David, and thank you to the choir, who is now invisible, but they were wonderful. I hope to see you all at coffee hour after service, and if you're new, I hope you'll stop by the welcome table and we can get to know you. Go forth.